Shit, sorry.
That's the old one. Welcome to another filler episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. I am Joe.
I'm Caleb. I thought we weren't going to be doing these anymore. I thought
no more filler from now on.
I thought our last year was supposed to be pure, and all the reviews and all the extra content that we still have to go through.
Schweiss, do you know where that stack of papers is that says our episode plan?
No.
So I'm afraid, I think we're like a month behind.
Yeah. Probably.
So, obviously, we're not reviewing Crystal Chronicles. Of course, never put up the thread in the forum that said review your Crystal Chronicles.
Oh, you never posted that?
So now's a good time.
You know, the thing
is, I'm doing it right fucking now.
I was thinking about doing that, but I was like, nah, Joe probably did it. And then I just didn't look.
Schweiss, we know each other, don't we?
Well, when I say, I guess me being at the computer makes it easier for me to do it right when I say it's done, which is usually what I do.
It's okay, I'm doing it right now.
And there have been times that I've done it for you at that moment, but I just didn't for some reason.
Yeah. So that happened. Yeah, I wouldn't say...
I don't think anyone
in particular is to blame. I think it's just...
Well, I also don't think anybody thought we were actually going to finish it. So.
Why do you think that?
Well...
Maybe you were thinking that.
Honestly, I think we have a great logo right now, and I think people don't want to acknowledge that it's going to be something else really soon.
It's going to be a different logo soon.
Yeah, so they don't want it to change. They want it to remain the Type 0 logo that we didn't even pay for. That's really awesome.
Well, I do love our logo from Stallis. Really love it. And I also love all the places that we can share these episodes at, including Facebook.com/Ultimate Final Fantasy, YouTube.com/Ultimate Final Fantasy if you want to listen to the first 150 episodes.
Yeah,
of the
anything
show.
after that, haven't put it up there. Some people on YouTube think the show is like over.
I know, and I had to I respond to them. I go, you can just get a pod. I'm sure you have a podcast thing on your phone. Just find it, and you can do other shit. You don't have to be sitting there.
Because we did it was on that Vagrant Story song, and they're like, man, I wish you guys still did the podcast. I was like, we do. And I was like, really? You're only YouTube? I thought the YouTube was like a pity fuck of like a follow on YouTube. They're like, I'll follow these assholes. Like, just cause. But they're a real YouTube. So go on there, and first half of the show.
There you go.
All there.
It's all there.
Every episode.
Twitch.tv/Ultimate Final Fantasy is where you can see us do the episodes live. This is a late episode, and I'm sorry. A Nude Clan as well is late, and it's... we were
trying
I was
to
just emotionally just drained yesterday.
Well, yesterday I didn't have time to do an episode, but what we were trying to do was... We've done this in the past where it's like crunch time, and it's, okay, we need to beat the game, and then we record the review a day later. But we didn't beat the game, so we're not recording the review a day late. We're recording an episode that we could have done yesterday, but instead we tried to beat the game. But the game really laid down the law on us yesterday. So this game is set up in years, which is like, okay, so the world is
it's in real time. It's in real time. You got to play for 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. The world is really shitty. There's a giant plant that's very evil and very hard to kill that's spreading this like filthy cloud of pain, of miasma everywhere, and it's harmful to your body, right?
I can't go outside because of miasma. Yeah.
That's right, because of miasma. And your goal as a character is to go around and fucking collect tree juice, basically. So like these tears from the trees. that drop down. You collect it in a little pot that one of you has to hold and walk really slowly with.
That's one way of describing it, yeah.
And then
just a bunch of maple syrup just up in the air.
It's the ultimate Canadian adventure. Is what Crystal Chronicles is. Trying to get that maple syrup. And you go around and you collect the syrup, right? And once you get enough, the game advances to the next year. So basically you're collecting enough to survive so that you don't get killed by the miasma, because this stuff like kind of creates a barrier against the miasma around your village. And the way you do this is you go into certain areas that are new areas. You go into it the first time and then you're like, oh, hey, I figured out the dungeon. And then it locks it for 2 years. So it takes 2 years for the tree to build up enough emotion to start crying again so that you can collect its tears, right?
Yes.
And when we come back to these, the game kind of turns into okay, go repeat that dungeon, and you get stat boosts. So you don't have levels in this game. You have equipment boosts that boost your magic, attack, and defense. And you have artifacts that you collect throughout repeating these levels again and again and again, right? And you kind of get used to the level, so we can really power through a lot of them. The problem we were running into yesterday is we did that. We powered through a lot of levels, but there was an entire year in this game where my character did not get any better at all. That's about 2 hours of play.
There's no level ups as a normal Final Fantasy game in this, so you have to beat an entire level, and then you get the chance. And we're not sure how this fucking works.
Yeah, I don't understand how the RNG in this game works. Because
you get a chance at getting certain stat boosts at the end of the level, and they range from minuscule to huge to like you'll get a ring with Blizzard on it or an extra heart or whatever.
Yeah.
We were told that minimum level to defeat the final boss was like 55 strength, 55 defense, and so we were trying to get to that range yesterday, and I was able to get my strength above that, but I was never able to get my defense above that because the RNG, it was just randomly deciding whether or not you even had an ability to level up. And
and some of the viewers were saying like, oh, you need to collect the artifacts so you can get them at the end, and we did.
We would go through and get all the treasure chests, kill everybody.
We grabbed all the artifacts that the game had. And honestly, I think all we need to do is get the chests. I don't think we need to kill everybody. And the game, each level, each time you repeat it, it gets harder and harder, which is fine if you're getting stat boosts because you're becoming stronger and stronger. But we're not, right. So we're kind of just stagnating in this game. And we got some extra strength yesterday, but yeah, that's about it. And there were plenty of times where the artifacts, because it gives you this fucking wheel of artifacts of possible boosts, and you can't tell which one your partner could get
versus what you can get.
So it's not like, okay, I'll take this one, you take this one. It's like, okay, here's you have this, and this unlocked, and the rest of them were locked to you. And then Joe would pick one, and then it'd come to me, and I'd have one option.
But why even like put... Because it'll have a picture of all 5 artifacts, and sometimes neither of us can open up either one. It's like, why the fuck even have that there?
Yeah, it's like, and I guess it's...
do that?
I guess it's pre-MMO, like RNG, but it's so fuck-faced in this game. Like, it's so bullshit. Like, in an MMO, you know what happens? Like, there are times when you're farming items, and yeah, you don't get experience, but it doesn't matter as much because, like, you can go somewhere where you can get experience in an MMO. I don't have to stay and kill the bees all day like I do to get the item because I don't want to spend 30,000 gil on the market because these capitalist bastards they know the new fucking Rhapsodies of Anadil has come out, and if you want to buy that fucking chunk of honey, you're going to pay for it. So you can't do that. So I'm like, okay, I accept my fate, and I'm going to sit here until I grind out the honey. But I can leave the area with the bees and go somewhere where I can get experience and my character can become stronger.
Yes.
In this, you can't. It doesn't matter where you're at. We went to the end areas and we did them again and we still got fucked by this game. And it's like... And
because we were wondering, is it just because we're repeating the first 2/3 of the game.
Yeah. Although I will say the guy at the end of Minecart Carnage could probably kill just about any boss in the game by now because he's so
Minecart
strong.
Carnage. What the fuck is like Mines of Carthage or something?
Yeah, it's
I don't
something.
know.
Yeah, but it's crazy. It's getting insane and it's infuriating. And it's
tiny stat boosts. You don't even know if you're going to get a stat boost at the end of the level. It's ridiculous.
And there were times where we burned through a level in 5 minutes and we got a stat boost. And there were times where we did that and we didn't. And there were times when we spent an hour on a level and we didn't. And there were times when we spent an hour on the level and we do. And it's like, it's so inconsistent and it's like a risk. It's like, do I really even want to try to repeat this area? Because this is a pretty easy area. And if we go through it and we don't get anything, like...
We did get stat boosts. We are closer to our goal.
Yeah.
But we are not there.
And I can't build any more fucking armor either. I don't understand what's going on with that.
I got mithril armor as like the best one I can get, and that one did help my defense a lot. But I'm still a good like 6 points away from even having that 55 defense. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and that could be
I'm like 12.
That could be 6 fucking dungeons.
Yeah, it could be. Could be more.
Or more. Yeah, if it really wants to fuck us over. So
and it locks it for 2 years, so we have to like go further and further along the map, and it takes forever, and we run into these random fucking events.
The music still sucks.
Yeah, and the music's so annoying. The main map theme especially.
So this game's supposed to be about, what was it, like 19 hours on average to beat?
Yeah.
We are at 18 something, so we're getting there.
Yeah, and it's annoying
like
because
it's going to be pretty much what we,
were promised.
Yeah.
Well, the I guess the part that makes it
feels longer though.
Yeah. Well, the reason why that is because we're trying to play it together, and our schedules never line up. So there is no really playing it together with this game. Not like with 14.
Right.
But I mean, that was back in the days where I got done at a certain time that wasn't at midnight or later, so we were able to do that. But here, we have like 1 day a week, maybe 2, where we can play this game, and then we get as far as we can, and if it's not far enough, then we push it another week. So that's kind of where it is with it. So
I'm just hoping the next game actually is easy. Like, this one is easy.
Yeah, it is, but it's being a fuck.
But the last boss is... stats, its difficulty is so much higher than everything else around it.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, now we have to grind for forever.
Well, and the thing is we got to the final boss early, and I was like, oh, it's probably because we're early. But then we did the last 2-3 years of the game, and we're still not strong enough to beat it.
It's supposed to be 8-year kind of a thing.
Yeah, the canon storyline, it ends in 8 years, and we're in year 10 now, I think. So, like, we passed what we should. We should be able to fight the thing, but we can't.
There used to be an old guy on the bridge that would, like, send you off, and he's no longer there.
I think he's still in the village. I think I saw
died.
him. But he doesn't say anything.
As far as I know.
He's done with you.
Yeah, he's like, well, I should have gotten this done 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He keeps getting sent off, not getting very many stat boosts.
Yeah.
And he knows about all your stats, too.
Yeah, he's sick of talking to you because you're weak.
I mean, we tried. We went into the area, so my thing was like, look, if the regular guys are super difficult, we just got to keep going. And they were. The first guy actually kind of went down like a chump, but these ghost dudes that I remember were just the biggest pain in the ass when we first went through that level, and then went to the final boss, found out we couldn't beat him.
Yeah.
That they were he was still taking 1 million hits to kill, just 1 million of them. And so if we had higher defense, it might be easier to just be able to sit there and take it.
Yeah.
So that is kind of, it's just a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass. That fucking game.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we might have a chance now because we have the power. We're stronger by like quite a bit, but if we fuck up at all, we're gonna die in that final boss because we're not very much tougher.
Right.
We just do more damage,
which was like part of the problem.
Yeah,
we would die.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not
You'd
even
have the two spitting Jumanji creatures like freaking out on you.
Yeah, and they would catch you off guard.
Yeah,
in between cures, and you would just die. Yeah, so it's not even like a battle of attrition necessarily. It's just you have to have enough.
Stats are just not high enough.
Yeah, and the game doesn't want to give us stat increases, so it's like can't fucking review it because we can't beat it.
Yeah. We'll try and okay, what is your schedule this week?
I don't have it yet. I have Thursday off, but that's all I know.
It's Monday and you don't even know what you have for the next week?
Nope. I don't know until Tuesday.
That is infuriating.
The calendar is set up from Saturday. It's Saturday to Friday. So I know up to Friday. And I have known for a week, but I don't know.
What's
this
Friday?
Weekend. Friday I work at noon.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. On the 4th of July, I won't work very long, I don't think, but...
I don't work on 4th of July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They could keep me like fuck faces. Even though there's nothing. Does it do that?
You're working for the government, man. Freedom.
Yeah.
That's what they're all about there.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to talk about... I asked for suggestions on Twitter, and some very kind people put in some suggestions, a lot of which, unfortunately, we have definitely had episodes on before. So I didn't want to repeat ourselves. So one person, the heck was it? Was it Morbid? No, it wasn't. It was someone else. Shit, sorry. Twitter's loading, and I gotta look at it. I go, Crystal Chronicles has defeated us in both UFF and Nude Clan will be late because of it. Any ideas for what to talk about on UFF tomorrow morning? And Keanu Reeves Books says, which Metallica albums pair best with which Final Fantasies? And you know, Schweiss, if someone asked me to fill the time, I would say, have me ask about, or let's have me talk about Metallica.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Metallica. We're going to compare Metallica albums to Final Fantasies today. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves Books.
But before we get into any of that, we got some little pieces of news we can get to. News. Okay, so first up in news, I guess Drake has a new album, and on that new album he has a song called Final Fantasy. And in the first few seconds, you can hear a little bit of a Final Fantasy-inspired piece of music.
Yeah, you want to listen to it?
Yeah, listen to those first 10 seconds so that we don't get blocked.
I bet you we probably still will.
Okay, cut it. Yeah, there you go.
Well, I don't know if we'll get blocked, but it'll get muted.
Anyway, so there's the...
yeah, did you hear the Final Fantasy in there?
I did. It's got the little arpeggio thing. It's not the complete arpeggio. But obviously someone working on that album said it sounded like the Final Fantasy intro music. So they probably just called it Final Fantasy based on that. We listened to the song. It ain't got nothing to do with Final Fantasy. Yeah.
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 I don't know. I don't really care about that music, so.
I've never listened to Drake. I know he's huge right now. Just never listened to it. I know he's in that Anaconda music video.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the most Drake I've seen.
Yeah, I don't really.
I see him sitting on a chair with what's her face crawling towards him and going, ha ha ha.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. But yeah, cool. I mean, if you listen to that, I guess there you go. You got
there
both.
You go. I saw that all over Twitter. It's like, ooh, look, he has a song called Final Fantasy on the thing. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, what is this thing?
This is Nomura explaining away the lack of FF7 remake. So this is what Nomura is almost going Caleb Craig on things. Like when Caleb Craig, so our good friend Caleb on our other excellent podcast, Nude Clan, every time someone gives us shit about any one particular thing, he acts like we have to change that thing because it's such a it's such a bad idea. Like, it's just so bad. It's just every time he's like, guys, we should not do this anymore. He's like, we should not do this. It's like, I've seen a lot of people complaining about it. It's like,
well, look, it'll be one guy.
yeah, like, Caleb, one guy didn't like it out of a lot more than one guy, so I don't fucking care. And that's kind of how it is here, but I don't...
That's what you have to do. Guys, if you have a podcast, all right, you got to keep doing the thing that's getting you the audience in the first place.
Yeah.
And you can't just, like, assume that because one person didn't like a certain thing that you did, that everybody doesn't like that thing that you did. And at a certain point, you do need to develop a thick skin. And I would assume Caleb, being a thick man, would have a thick skin by now.
Well,
I guess not. It's
here's
just a thin
the thing.
skin.
Yeah, it's thin because it's stretched out over so much man. I think that's what's happening. Like, the skin was once thicker, but now, I mean, how can it be? Being so stressed
Oh, okay.
over all of that.
I mean, literally, yeah.
I'm surprised he's even contained.
It's like, I don't know what he would do if he got, like, a negative review that specifically named him on iTunes.
He just self-destruct.
Yeah, he wouldn't freak out and do a rant sort of thing like we do in a comedic way. I think it would be a serious way, like I'm going to slit my wrist kind of way.
Yeah, it'd be really hurt.
I'd be really concerned. Like, his inability to know that people are shitty on the internet.
Yeah. So it's weird that they have to talk about the lack of news because, I mean, it is obvious. They have a lot of other things coming out right now. Other games that have been announced for much longer than Final Fantasy VII's remake. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3 was announced forever ago.
It was. And so Square Enix is not putting out Final Fantasy VII remake news in order to not take away the spotlight from things that are going to come out a lot sooner than it. And it totally makes sense. And, yeah, if things make sense, there you go. That's the end of the explanation.
Yeah,
it's done.
And I think a lot of people, I guess,
Dude,
people were
we're
concerned.
fans, and we deserve news.
Yeah,
dude.
So yeah, Nomura. Apparently,
Come
there are
on.
people that are concerned because the lack of news implies the lack of, I guess, progress with the development status. And a lot of people are. And then Nomura said that, it's not really about that. It's about just spotlighting what we have coming out, what we are done with. What's ready to go? It's not because all of their IPs are important to them. So, I mean, they're going to concentrate on the one that's ready to ship units because that's what they're about. They're a company; they need to make money. So I kind of wish they would just leave it alone and just not even acknowledge this kind of shit. But they feel the need to, and that's why they're Caleb Craig mode. Is they feel like they have to acknowledge the fact that someone was mad about the lack of news for the FF7
It's just
remake.
like it's becoming a poisonous fan community, and it has been since like FF13. I think like a pretty poisonous fan community, the FF community in some ways. There's that phrase I heard a couple weeks ago: is "No one hates Star Wars movies like a Star Wars fan." I'm starting to think no one hates Final Fantasy games like a Final Fantasy fan. It's just funny. It's funny to me. Like, look, it's gonna come out. I don't think it's gonna be a versus 13 situation with the FF7 remake.
Yeah, probably not.
They know they're gonna make a shitload of money off of it, so it's like, let them make their thing. We don't even know if it's gonna be any good. That's another thing too. So everybody needs to just calm the fuck down and stop harassing these people that are trying to make games for you.
Yeah.
So that they have to answer questions like, why haven't we gotten FF7 news?
I mean, this is the company that does talk about the fact that there will be news.
Yeah, that is also not a good thing. They need to just shut the fuck up, too.
Yeah, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I'm telling you, that's what Rockstar does. They didn't show up at E3 at all, and I haven't looked, but I don't know if they've said anything about that. They don't have to. They don't care.
I doubt Blizzard has like 9 million different like advertisements going on besides like announcing a new character for whatever the fuck they're working on.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna seed out Diablo 4 information every 5 months.
Yeah, I don't think so. They'll probably just like, hey, it's coming, and then they'll release it
someday.
Yeah.
Then it'll be excellent. So Hironobu Sakaguchi, apparently this was something that came out of an interview with Nomura. Nomura was originally going to have like a pretty lighthearted, adventurous story that fit Disney when they were originally making Kingdom Hearts, and apparently it was Hironobu Sakaguchi that suggested to have a more complex anime story that Final Fantasy fans would enjoy. So that's interesting. That's a little interesting bit of a tidbit of information right there. I wouldn't really count that as news, but it's interesting. And then
yeah, I guess Nomura says he's inherited Final Fantasy creator Sakaguchi's spirit in making games. I don't know about that because
Sakaguchi put them out every 2 years.
Yeah, Sakaguchi made games, and as far as I can tell, Nomura does not.
No,
So,
he just talks about making them.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we'll see how it is when it comes out, but that's about where we're at with old Nomura.
I'm excited, man. The other two Kingdom Hearts games are excellent.
Yeah. We'll get to them eventually.
They have terrible songs, but they're excellent. I'm going to get so much shit on Twitter about that. People love that fucking Sanctuary piece of shit song. The Sanctuary. It sounds awful. I think that's it for news, man. Just 4 pieces of news. Shinru gave us that. So, thanks, Shinru. And, Schweiss, let's talk about Metallica.
All right, let's do it. Okay, Schweiss, so I think for some people, maybe the idea of Metallica and Final Fantasy coming together would be an odd thing. But we're so used to going off into the Metallica corner of Final Fantasy, comparing things to Metallica, because both you and I are pretty big Metallica fans. I would say personally I'm a gigantic Metallica fan. And so when you both love a certain mega band, one of the only bands that has had hits for more than 3 decades, when you're a big fan of that group, there's a lot of story there. There's a lot of developments, and there's a lot of places for comparison between 2 large creative projects like the Final Fantasy series and like the Metallica discography. So we are going to compare Metallica albums to Final Fantasy games. I don't know how you want to do this. If you want to just like stick it to the main series, maybe. Yeah, we'd have to. I don't think the rest of them count. I mean, they're not even made by Square sometimes. Yeah. So, like Crystal Chronicles, yeah,
fuck them. And in that case, what? I mean, should we say what Final Fantasy is? Final Fantasy's Kill 'Em All.
I mean, honestly,
Kill 'Em All, Metallica's first album, obviously.
I think that FF1 has to be Kill 'Em All. I mean, it's the very first project they put out. It's the very first big thing they released. It's sort of it's what the series is still, but it's an extremely rough cut version.
Now
what we
there's
have.
10 Metallica albums. There's 15 main Final Fantasy games right now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to group some of them
We're gonna
together.
have to group them all together, and I would say Kill 'Em All is Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. That's what I would say. Some people say it's the best one. Those people are fucking crazy, both in the Kill 'Em All camp and in the Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3 camp. Here's what I would say about Kill 'Em All versus Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. So Kill 'Em All is, if you listen to all of Metallica's discography, Kill 'Em All is an album that comes from like a different era of music. Like there's so much Iron Maiden influence in Kill 'Em All and other bands of that ilk, the new wave of British heavy metal, and all the punk bands around that time as well. There's so much of that in Kill 'Em All that what Metallica became after that almost doesn't even like, even the next album, it doesn't even like really kind of coalesce there. And I would say Final Fantasy is, obviously it took a ton of influence from Dragon Quest and then other earlier RPGs like Ultima.
So you're talking Dragon Quest is Iron Maiden in this scenario?
Yeah, Dragon
Final
Quest
Fantasy
is Iron
just
Maiden.
kind of ripped it off.
Sure. But I would say it's less of a ripoff. It was a mixing up. It was an extension of it. It's not the same game, but there's a lot of similarities there. In that first Final Fantasy, or the first few Final Fantasies, they are a place for the series to start, but it does not really what the series became, like, even just a little bit later on.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't even...
that's true. I mean...
It doesn't. There's no, like, real smooth linear path. It's like both Final Fantasy and Metallica with Ride the Lightning. And with Final Fantasy IV, I think they both, like... They went up so many steps so quickly in terms of quality, in my opinion, and in terms of where their voice was really at, where it was going to hit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, when you listen to Kill 'Em All, I think there are some really great songs on there, but there are also some really great moments in Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. There's some great shit in there. The job system in 3 is really good. I would say the guitar work on the Dave Mustaine songs in Kill 'Em All is pretty impressive.
Well,
I will say his songs are not my favorites, sadly. But
really,
yeah,
Jump in the Fire is fucking sweet.
I guess no. You know what? Four Horsemen, I think, is the best song on there, and that is his. But his version of that song is not. It's like half as good.
No, it's not as good
as the original one that he wrote for Metallica.
Actually, he took his lyrics. James Hetfield redid the lyrics.
Yeah.
So Four Horsemen's lyrics on Kill 'Em All, or those are James Hetfield lyrics?
No, I know. I'm talking the guitar work.
Yeah. Yeah.
He Megadethed it later, and it's not as good.
What is Final Fantasy's Megadeth then?
You know what? I would say Sakaguchi's new company is...
Oh, Mistwalker? I mean, he left way later, if that's the case.
Yeah.
You don't think Mistwalker is just like the fucking Newstead band?
Yeah, no, because Newstead wasn't the OG bassist.
No, I don't think so either.
I would say Mistwalker. I would say Dave Mustaine is Hironobu Sakaguchi.
But Hironobu Sakaguchi is not like super bitter.
Yeah, he doesn't really care. I mean, I'm sure he cares.
I think he likes his autonomy in a smaller company. He seems to, anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just what impression I get.
It doesn't seem like he's trying to become, or like trying to overcome like what he was taking away.
And he's
from.
also having big hit games, but they're not as big as Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's kind of true.
Yeah, Blue Dragon, Last Story, and Lost Odyssey, right? Yeah, I guess, there's a little bit of something there. It's just a lot later on.
Yeah, way later.
If Dave Mustaine had stayed in the band for forever, it's a little different. So, yeah, I think, do you agree on 1, 2, and 3 being Kill 'Em All, or just 1?
I would have to do 1, 2, and 3, because 2 doesn't really advance Final Fantasy. I mean, it advances Final Fantasy 1, but it does it in a different way. They're still in their phase of trying to figure out what Final Fantasy is. Yeah. And I would say 3 is in the same boat because it introduces a job system. It's like, the first third of the album, the second third of the album, and the third. As far as like the songs,
the different songwriters.
Yeah.
There you go.
As far as like when they wrote the songs as a group, I would say those are the Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy 3 is like Seek and Destroy.
Yeah, like some of the later ones
Final Fantasy 2 is like
that are a little
the bass solo.
You can tell they're a little closer to what they become later.
Sure, yeah.
But not quite there. It's still like the building blocks. So yeah, I think that's fair.
They still got that. If you listen to the Metallica demos, and I was telling you this before we started, the demos before Kill 'Em All, they're very... Like, James Hetfield was even doing that high singing thing that those old metal bands used to do. Like, he was trying that. He's not very good at it, frankly.
Yeah, he's kind of not that great of a vocalist. But
luckily, he found his voice. Now, I think he's a great vocalist from, like, 1988 to, like, 97. His voice is just amazing. You gotta watch the old concert footage there. And he's okay now. I mean, he is 56 years old or something like that. He's been singing for 30 years, but... it's kind of in that kind of that high singing though. It was really something I didn't love, and that's the one. Those are the ones that have the Dave Mustaine solos on it. These ones, the Kill 'Em All, I believe the first 16 bars are Dave Mustaine, and the rest is Kirk Hammett. And you can hear the differences in where the solos went.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool to do that, but those demos are not good.
And how impressive the solos are, as well. As much as I like Kirk Hammett, I mean, I think Dave Mustaine probably started out as a better guitarist, and I think he's still a better guitarist. But they both got a lot better as time went on. Although he does, Dave always talks about everybody in his band being better than he is, and like playing guitar. He always finds someone that's like superior.
He gets some sick guitarist in there. Kiko, the newest guitarist of Megadeth, is disgusting. He's a sick guitarist. He can do everything Marty Friedman can do and like a little bit more. And he can do everything the guy previous to him, whose name just slipped me, who was kind of like a weird tappy kind of dude. The type of guitar work that he did, he can also do all that shit too. Kiko is a freak. So yeah.
Well, he did say he's the best guitarist he's ever had in the band.
That's what Dave said.
He says that every time, but maybe it's true every time.
I think it might be true this time. I don't think it was true for whoever was on the middle albums between Marty Friedman and the guy who came in during United Abominations or Endgame or whichever album.
That guy's pretty good, but...
Yeah, that guy's sick too, but he's not quite the same.
But the creativity, though, I don't know if it's there as much now.
You don't think so?
I don't know.
Dude, those solos on Dystopia are awesome.
This is about Metallica, though.
Okay. Oh, you're talking about Kirk Hammett?
Yeah. No, I still think he's pretty good, but he didn't have any solos in the last album.
He did have solos.
Well, he had one or two, but most of it's just...
They're okay solos. The Death Magnetic solos are sick. And of course, he didn't have anything to Insane Anger. But like those Load and Reload albums are all like Kirky shit. He loves that blues stuff and the weird guitar work, and yeah, that's all Kirk Hammett. There's so much Kirk Hammett influence in the '90s, and then they almost like kicked him out. Just come in, do solos, leave.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kill 'Em All. First 3 Final Fantasies. Trying to find their voice, haven't quite hit it. I would say then that number 4 and 5. Maybe just number 4. I gotta think about this.
I don't think...
Which one's Ride the Lightning?
I do think FF4 would be Ride the Lightning.
FF4 has got to be Ride the Lightning.
Because...
Some people think it's the best one.
Yeah, some people think it's the best. It's certainly very good, and it's better than what came before it.
Yes.
Undoubtedly so.
Mm-hmm.
But what came after is also undoubtedly better, in my mind.
Okay.
But yeah, there are a lot of people who do think those are both the best that those groups have done, that Final Fantasy's had. A lot of people love 4. A lot of people love Ride the Lightning, so... I think they kind of took what they did in the previous album and in the previous games, and they sort of found the best. They like cherry picked the best aspects of those two pieces of medias, or multiple pieces, and they threw it all together, and they kind of found what they were. And that was like the first real Final Fantasy in a lot of ways. Like
the jump in quality between 3 and 4 in Final Fantasy and between Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning are similar.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
It's quite the step up.
I wonder what it would be like to be a fan of Metallica when they were a small band, relatively small band. I guess they were a big underground band. When they put out Kill 'Em All and then like getting Ride the Lightning. It's like the fucking the Fight Fire with Fire song is just a beast. There's nothing like that on Kill 'Em All. Just like how fucking heavy that song is in comparison to everything on Kill 'Em All.
That's true. Yeah.
Kill 'Em All is like, it's a heavy metal record, but heavy metal in the like whoa sense.
Yeah.
Like more of the hard rock kind of fun heavy metal sense. Ride the Lightning's first riff is just, it's a face melter. It's a bulldozer. It's like, it's sick.
Yeah. It kind of starts that way out with FF4 too. I mean, you have really light, almost just unimportant stories in the first 3 Final Fantasies. You're not really connected to the characters that much. It's just kind of happening. Things happen. You run in, you do the thing, and then you're done with the game. Right? There's not really much. 3 kind of got a little closer to that, but then when you start out FF4, suddenly you have characters that are very well written. They each have their own little story arc. We have an overall theme to the game. We have conflict between the main protagonists. I mean, Kane wants to bone, Rosa, and Cecil's with her, and like there's a lot of shit going on with that. I mean, it's there's a lot of. It almost becomes it does become a little heavier on the story.
It's more complex. It's a bigger, more bombastic story.
Yeah, I would say that similarities between that and the riffs.
The riffs and the songwriting is just generally better too. They're not singing about leather as much. But the next Metallica album is Master of Puppets.
Yeah, so this is where it gets hard.
This is where I don't think FF5 is Master of Puppets.
No, I think FF5 is a Metallica album that never happened.
Yeah, it's the one in between Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets.
Yeah, which I guess you could say, I mean, I would put, if I were to put like where the albums go, I would almost say the new one is kind of there-ish. But I would say it's closer to in between the first one and Ride the Lightning, though.
Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
Yeah, because they don't really have the solos in that as much. So they're not Master of Puppets yet, but they're still really heavy and really thrashy.
Okay.
So,
see, I want to look at it linearly. Like, I don't want to step away from that.
Well, yeah, because the whole idea of like the long-term project doesn't work if you don't. All right, that's fine.
No. That's your view on that. It can be FF5 is a Metallica album that didn't happen, or whatever you were about to say. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Metallica album that never came is probably closer. To
I would almost say then I would group FF4 with FF5 and call that Ride the Lightning.
Yeah.
Just like I did 1, 2, and 3 with Kill 'Em All. Call FF4 and FF5 Ride the Lightning. There's obviously, I would call FF4 almost, I would call that, the heavy songs. And then I would call FF5 kind of, the lighter stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe Escape can be the FF5.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I listened to a Metallica podcast called Metal Up Your Podcast, and they always defend the song Escape, which I think is James Hetfield's least favorite song that they ever wrote in Metallica, and Trapped Under Ice as well. Those are like both seen as like the stinker songs in Ride the Lightning. And I didn't know that was like a fan thing. That was like, those songs aren't great, but then like some fans like really fucking love those songs.
Yeah.
And personally, when I got that album for the first time, I thought the same thing. I was like, these are not good. these two songs they're just not the Metallica I love. They almost tried to make a radio hit single, and that's what it was. Apparently, that was the whole story behind.
Oh, really?
Escape, yeah. That's why it sounds ridiculous. What do you think about Escape?
I don't know. I don't listen to that album very often, so.
No, really?
But yeah, those two, Trapped Under Ice is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And that's why when people tell me that's their favorite Metallica album, I'm like, nah, you're an idiot. You're.
It does have Creeping Death on it.
Creeping Death is like top 5 amazing songs, but that's it. I mean, it's not a 1. It's not a Master of Puppets either. It's fucking close.
Oh, Creeping Death?
Yeah.
I think Creeping Death is like ranked number 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I would put it as number 3. But Creeping Death is really fun, and it's fun the whole time.
I fucking love that song, man. It's a great song to blast.
Yeah.
Like most Metallica songs are.
Pretty much, yeah.
You can't have it at a normal volume. That's why I'm deaf.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, oh, you're a Metallica fan? Well, you're going to be deaf because the best way to enjoy these songs is at 11.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I would put, Ride the Lightning's kind of better half as FF4, and the still okay or still good second half is FF5.
Even though we ranked 5 above 4?
In gameplay, yeah, we did. So, but to me, like, I'm thinking, I am kind of leaning on my story side right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to for the Final Fantasy games because the story is like the biggest part. And 4's is more solid than 5's.
I think
certainly.
I think so.
4 takes away a lot at the end and screws out all of the awesomeness that it was by, take backsies. But
well, I kind of want to take backsies on that comment because you're right. I love FF5 a lot. I'll just put them, I'll just smush them together. And
we kind of have to
because
FF5 can't be Master of Puppets. That's just not right.
It's not Master of Puppets.
Master of Puppets has to be FF6. It really
has
does.
To be.
Because a lot of people think FF6 is the greatest one of all time, and a lot of people think the one that came after it is the greatest one of all time. And
it's funny though, because my favorite Metallica album is Justice for All, which I'm obviously going to put FF7 as Justice for All.
I didn't say my favorite is Master of Puppets. I think the best one is Master of Puppets. I think my favorite is Ride the Lightning, is And Justice for All because it's just so fucking good, right? But as far as like the overall package, I think. And I still, to this day, I still think that Damage Incorporated is better than
Dyer's Eve.
I do.
Look,
the breakdown in Damage
great.
Inc. is sick, man. It's amazing.
They're both great songs, but you're wrong.
That pedally solo right after
as far as like ridiculously fast, heavy songs from Metallica, album enders. They've had like face melting album enders. They have 4 of them. Or there's Damage Incorporated from Ride the Lightning.
Master.
From Master of Puppets. From Justice for All, there's Dyer's Eve. And then from the latest 2 album, Death Magnetic had My Apocalypse, which is another like super fast, awesome, heavy song. And then Hardwired to Self-Destruct has Spit Out the Bone, which is one of the best songs Metallica's ever written. And it's also in that fast freak camp. Thrash.
I would probably
Ultimate thrash.
I would probably put My Apocalypse as the worst one, but it's still really good. But
out of those 4, yeah, I would put My Apocalypse as the worst one. But My Apocalypse is like one of the 4 go-to songs that I go to on Death Magnetic. Fucking love My Apocalypse. That one's a great one to blast as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Master of Puppets is FF6.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
I do think FF6 is one of the most solid Final Fantasies, even if it isn't my favorite.
I'd say Disposable Heroes is Ultros.
Yeah.
That Ultros thing, just to make the game not perfect, but still great. Still almost perfect.
Yeah, I think it's still better than the crap songs on the first one, though, or on Ride the Lightning.
You think Disposable Heroes is better than Escape?
Yeah.
That's a tough one for me. Those are both in like my bottom Metallica songs. I don't really love them. Always thought the lyrics on Disposable Heroes were too on the nose and not very good.
Yeah.
Love the riff, though. It's fucking heavy and brutal, but don't love the lyrics on that one. But everything else is, it's like perfect.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We have bass, it's powerful, it's heavy, they created the song that would then create the greatest song of all time. Master of Puppets does lead into one. They have kind of the same stylistic songwriting. It's like super awesome, and then like it has that like slower phase, and then it just gets fucking nuts.
I would actually say I think Sanitarium is a lot closer.
You think
Sanitarium?
I guess
won.
the build, the build is the same.
It's got the soft verses, heavy chorus, soft verses, heavy chorus, mega breakdown.
I guess that's true. You know what the sad part is, though?
There's like 5 songs that follow that in Metallica's
they always have one, and Sanitarium to me is. Oh wait, no. Yeah, Sanitarium to me is the soft song on the album, like where they have their.
It's a heavy song.
It is. No, it is, but it's the fucking the Fade to Black. They always have the one that's like kind of.
They always got the ballad in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have 2.
Yeah, and that's kind of what that one is to me. But I do think that the setup is really similar to one. So I think we needed this album. We needed FF6 to have FF7.
You do. You do need FF6 to have FF7. And you just hit 2 huge home runs in a row, by the way, which both Master Puppets to Justice for All is FF6 to FF7.
Yeah.
So obviously we're both saying that Justice for All is Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and then FF7, Sephiroth is one. He's the best villain they've ever created.
And you know what? The terrible graphics are the lack of bass.
It is, yeah. They fucked up a little bit, but it's still great.
They made it so that it didn't age well in one respect. They had to do that in both cases.
Yeah.
So in Injustice for All, the bass, which by the way is there,
you can hear it sometimes.
It's not gone completely.
The hard part is trying to decide if it's
the low end of the guitar
or the fucking high end of the drum. Yeah, it's like I can't tell who this is right now.
It's
maybe.
tough, but I think Harvester of Sorrow has a little bit more bass in it than any of the other songs do. And then, and you can hear it in just some little parts. If you got it fucking loud enough, and you can just kind of hear the presence of a lower note than what's in the guitars. But where you can actually hear it is in Dyer's Eve when there's a fucking like and there's like crazy triplets going on the guitars followed by like a cutoff, and within that cutoff you can hear the bass, like the bass string kind of slapping noise. The tone isn't there, but the string noise is there.
So you can tell there was
bass.
one there.
So there is
even
a bass
if you can't
there.
hear the note that the bass makes.
Well, actually, you can download on a Reddit thread. They put in the Metallica stems, so that's like it's like the 4 tracks that they put together and mixed together to make the overall record. And you can get the bass, and you can have the and it's only for like 4 or 5 songs. They ripped it from Guitar Hero.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know what's sad? I'm going to say this right now. Death Magnetic on Guitar Hero Metallica, they didn't have Rick Rubin mix it, and it sounds fucking awesome.
Well, Rick Rubin doesn't mix.
Well, no, he did. They didn't have him like.
The engineer for that album is actually the new producer now.
Oh, really?
Really?
Well, they don't have that guy doing it, and they have the tracks as they should sound, and it sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like blast your fucking ears out.
That's what I've heard, and people will put them on YouTube.
Yeah,
and you can. Why does Metallica, the fucking biggest metal band in the world, one of the biggest artists ever, still? By the way, their album was the 3rd highest selling behind Beyonce and Drake. The year it came out, 2016.
Yeah.
For Metallica, a band that started in 1979, to still have that much clout and that many sales.
Yeah, just like Final Fantasy. Why don't they remaster?
Those guys make like $240 fucking million. They're worth a shitload of money, right? And yet for some reason there's always some like audio shit. Like,
yeah.
Every couple of albums there's like something wrong with the engineering. It's like this is the part that You should just hire the best in the world, and this should never happen.
Or you should make Dave Mustaine your producer, because this shit sounds amazing.
This shit always sounds great. I think, honestly, it's because he leaves them alone. I think Lars Ulrich likes to go in there and
tamper.
Fuck with shit, yeah.
He's
kind of like Jake likes to come over here and fuck with my mixer.
Or Joe when he's trying something new out.
That's true.
And then it just sounds like ass.
Yeah. Anyway. So, Master of Puppets, FF6, and Justice for All, FF7.
Or, you mean, yeah. I agree.
You agree. But what is...
FF8 is clearly the Black Album.
Is it clearly the Black Album?
I think it is. I think it is because it's kind of the black sheep to a lot of people. Although I would say, I'm going to say this now, I think the Black Album is better than FF8. I mean, I know that's a hard comparison to make, but as far as like what Metallica is and what they became, it's better than what Final Fantasy was and what FF8 was. I think it's a better thing. But I think the reason why they work is because one is the Black Album and one is a black sheep of the Final Fantasy series. It's hard, though, because the Black Album is like huge and really loud, and it has, you know, it's really good. But it is kind of the turning point for a lot of people, and I kind of feel like, I mean, for me anyway, FF8 sort of is too. It's like after FF7, you know, after this awesome thing, we have this. And it's like, it's just so different, you know? It has such a different feel. It has a different look. It has a different system. The setup is like not quite the same. And I think the Black Album is, to me, is really great, but it marks the turning point in when Metallica gets worse.
I actually disagree with you.
Because I think Load and Reload are nowhere near. They're like less than half as awesome as Master of Puppets and Justice for All. And I think the catalyst for those two is not only the fact that grunge became a thing, which fuck that. Although Metallica did it awesomely with their like the way he just changed his voice, you know, he just did like added the at the end, which is, you know, the incomprehensible Pearl Jam Nirvana thing that they do. I think that it all started with the Black Album, which some view as the peak. Some view FF8 as the best Final Fantasy because it's the one they got into, and Black Album is the one that a lot of Metallica fans got into because that was fucking massive when it came out. It was insane, and it has some of the best shit in it. And I don't think that part compares with FF8. I don't think FF8 has really anything that's the best of Final Fantasy necessarily.
Great cutscenes.
Yeah, really good looking cutscenes. But I do think that's kind of where, for me, that's like a peak. It's like a weird mountaintop, and then like a huge, like fucking cliff after that.
I don't think Twice does have a problem with grunge. He has a problem with Metallica trying to sound like grunge.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with grunge necessarily. I don't like Pearl Jam. I think they are terrible.
I think you're fucking wrong. But
and Nirvana is only okay. But Alice in Chains, which honestly, you know, Alice in Chains, I listened to all their old stuff. They're barely grunge. Like, they're a metal band pretty much. The vocalist is kind of grungy, but the rest of it is pretty much a metal band that just happened to start when grunge was a thing.
In the same place.
In the same place with kind of a similar sound. But that's why they're the best, though, is because they're the metal band. The other ones are just rock bands, you know. But I do kind of feel that way about the Black Album. Like, it's still really good, and it's still better than... It's still the third best, which doesn't compare with FF8, which is like
the
center.
This is the problem I have. So the Black Album for Metallica, it was gigantic.
Yeah.
And in that respect, we're never going to be able to compare the Final Fantasies to it. Because
because 7
was the peak.
So 7 could be...
But
both, I guess, but it's hard to...
I would actually straight up just skip 8 and 9 and go straight to 10. And I think FF10 is the Black Album.
You know what? That's actually fair. If we're gonna make the problem with that is that now this podcast episode is a Metallica episode, not a Final Fantasy episode at all, because we just cut out 2 FFs. But I agree.
I don't know if there's the transition between Justice for All and Black Album.
It's pretty big.
There wasn't really a transition. It was thrash, and there's like 2 thrash songs on the Black Album. The rest are hard rock.
Yeah.
Kind of, they're not super radio friendly, frankly, but they are more radio friendly. More of a pop feel to it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that any band has ever done that sounds like the Black Album, including Metallica. They've never done an album that sounds like the Black Album. But ever since the Black Album, Metallica started exploring different places.
I would say that, yeah, Final Fantasy sort of follows that.
I would say Metallica's willingness to do shorter songs that had straight up catchy choruses and shit. That is the transition into voice acting. And also FF10 was also a mega hit, and I think FF10's footprint, I think it has more of a footprint on the series than FF7 or FF6 does for the second run of the series. I don't think, like, you look at FF15, you're not thinking of FF6, you're thinking of FF10 and on. Like, that feel.
It did kind of, like, become something different.
Yeah, so I think that turning point is FF10, and I would argue that FF8 and 9 don't really work with the comparison to Metallica, unless you want to take their newer albums, which are definitely kind of returning to their roots.
Yeah.
And, like, put them over there, like Death Magnetic or Hardwired to Self-Destruct. You could put those there in that place, but I mean, if I were to go chronologically, I would say FF10 is the Black Album.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a peak that a lot of people feel like they've never hit again, and I would say that's fair for Metallica as well. I don't think I would argue that there's a Final Fantasy that's better than 10 that's come out since 10. Mm-hmm. There are some that I like more than 10, but as far as like the overall quality and the overall excellence and the fact that it's, you know, it's Final Fantasy-ness, I guess, I don't think I could argue that for either entertainment mediums, because I don't think Metallica's released an album as good as the Black Album since then, and I don't think Final Fantasy has released a Final Fantasy as good as 10 since they did, and I think both of them had a massive effect on pop culture at the time. I mean, there were a lot of people that think Final Fantasy X marked like almost the end of the JRPG. Like ever since then, it's been like things are trying to kind of be like that game, but nothing can quite capture it, including Square themselves. They can't quite do what they once did.
Some people look at it as the end of the FF series, and some people look at it, the Black Album as the end of good Metallica.
I kind of see where they're coming from.
I totally disagree, actually. I think there's a lot of good shit in the later Metallica albums, but that's kind of where there's a lot of fall-off happening.
Yeah, well, I think that...
It's kind of like, I would also argue another band, it's kind of like Minutes to Midnight with Linkin Park.
Yeah, I guess. Except for that's actually never been
It's like
good,
a big turning. No, Minutes to Midnight was huge.
No, I know, but I didn't like it. I know,
I didn't like it either, but... So we were the old Linkin Park fans that kind of like... There's old Metallica fans. Only Metallica's a better band. Don't get me wrong about this. I'm just making another comparison for the folks, for the young folks out there, right?
Yeah. The 15-year-olds that listen to our show. The 15-year-olds
that are like, I love those pop Linkin Park songs. It's like, you listen to the old ones. It's like, it's pretty heavy, you know, screaming type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so me and you probably like the first 2 Linkin Park albums, right?
Yeah.
Meteora and Hybrid Theory. And then they put out Minutes to Midnight, which is a giant pile of shit, in our opinion.
Sounds like,
but it also was a gigantic radio hit, and everything from then was a giant hit, and they kind of went up and down, obviously, up until.
And they had their Saint Anger too, with that really heavy one that still kind of sucks, but
yeah, Hunting Party.
It's like one song that's okay.
That is a point. They have
one song
Saint
that's
Anger,
okay.
Their Saint Anger is Hunting Party.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I actually bought that album because I was like, "Ooh, Linkin Park's getting heavy again." I listened to the album, I was like, "It's okay."
I was like,
"It is heavy, but
yeah, it's not good though."
I don't think the songwriting's quite all there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's fair, because I mean and it's not necessarily the death of Metallica and the death of Final Fantasy. It's just the death of what they were.
Yeah.
I think it's the death of their peak performance.
Yeah.
And then later on they started kind of just experimenting,
evolving, I would say.
which is fine. It's not bad, and I would say that the Final Fantasies since 10 aren't bad. They're just not as good.
And they're kind of up and down.
They're just, they're up and down, and they're just not as good to me, and it's not as good. It's not in as good of a place, and I don't think it ever can be in as good of a place as they were for Final Fantasy X or for the Black Album and behind it. I don't think I don't know if it's even possible for Metallica to release an album that's as good as the Black Album anymore. And I don't know if Final Fantasy can fucking muster the ability to do that either, because they're so concerned with everything around them, which is kind of different, but
concerned with pleasing fans.
Yeah, and
that is something Metallica doesn't do.
No, they don't at all.
They don't seem to be in the business of pleasing fans.
They do what they want to.
Yeah.
They do what they think will do well, while also keeping people somewhat happy, I guess.
Yeah.
They do what I think they do what they like to do, and then they also, it's like 50% what they want, and it's 50% what they need to do. So that's why we get like the weird grunge influence with it for a while during the 90s, and even now at times. Not as much in the last two, or you know what? No, fuck it. It's just those two in the 90s.
So the next pair is Load and Reload, which are really honestly two separate albums that we
They are.
together. They were recorded at different times. They have different guitar tones.
They are very different. One
They
of them
didn't
is
write
pretty
all the
good,
songs
and one
at
of them is one of the worst I've ever done. So I would almost say Reload is FF11. I don't know though. That's hard because FF11 isn't a bad game, and I think it's the best. You know what? No, it is Reload, because Reload is still better than Saint Anger, and 14 is probably going to be Saint Anger for me.
Not 13, huh?
No, 13 will. As far as like
13's definitely Saint
for
Anger.
me, I'm like comparing it as like the two worst and which one I like more. And I think Reload is better, so I think 11 might. I still think 11 is better than 14, which is sad because we've spent way more time.
I'm gonna kind of remove my feelings on the quality for a second here. Load and Reload are both really experimental directions for Metallica, as is FF11 and FF12. And obviously, one built upon the other. So Reload sound definitely comes out of Load, and then they went weirder with it. FF12 didn't go weirder with FF11. It took it and kind of like corrected it almost.
Yeah,
like tuned it up. So that is the difference there. But I would almost like just mush both of them together. Just call Load and Reload as FF11 and FF12.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of have a similar feel. They have a similar
They're kind of
style.
They're loosey-goosey
yeah,
in comparison
they're
to
a
being
lot,
like tight,
you know, one of them is way more bluesy than the other. So 11 it makes you down. It takes away all your joy, you know, in the beginning, and it's the bluesy one. And then 12 is kind of like
12 came in with Fuel.
Yeah.
Of course, you're saying it's the opposite.
No, I'm saying that's right.
Okay.
Because I like Load way more, but I like 12 more than 11, so I don't know. It's hard, but I can see it thematically working, because 11 is kind of like a serious black sheep, because it's the first MMO, and they decided to do an MMO as part of the main series, so it's like a spin-off Metallica album that they put out as a main album, you know?
You know, Metal Up Your Podcast, which I'll quote again, they talk about the lyrical content in those two albums being like the best lyrics that James Hetfield has ever written, like in terms of like the quality of the poetry. And I would almost say like the voice acting FF12. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. The best in the series.
The best in the series, you know, as far as that is concerned, that very specific kind of thing is concerned.
That's fair, yeah.
But here's the thing, I love FF12. I like 11, some aspects of it. And I would say kind of those two things together is how I feel about Load and Reload as a whole. There's fucking shit I love on both of those albums.
Yeah, there is.
And then there's stuff that I just kind of think is okay. And unfortunately, Metallica is the best band ever, so something okay coming from Metallica, it hurts. But
yeah,
it's just, you know, it's okay.
I would say
like
that
Slither, it's okay.
I would say that another aspect of like comparison between the two is FF11 kind of is about like community and about like a melting pot, and I would say that Load and Reload are sort of a melting pot of musical influence on the band and what's big around that time. You know, it's kind of like a coming together of blues, metal, and fucking grunge in a lot of ways. So
RPGs that are bigger in expanse than FF10 was.
Yeah, they have a bigger scope.
Yeah.
Even it's not. I mean, I don't think anyone would say they're better necessarily, but it's just different. And the both of the series did start experimenting. I mean, 11 was a big game for a very long time. It still has a pretty big following. I mean, it's still going. They just barely shut down the PS2 servers for it. I mean,
you know what? I would say 12 almost has the same legacy as Load and Reload, because 12 is like the game that everybody fucking hated right at the beginning, even though it sold a lot.
Yeah,
and had good reviews, just like Load did.
It's got
by the
almost the highest score.
Seen as a hated
9.
thing for fans, and then in the last few years, for some reason, they've been picking up and going, "Hey, this ain't bad."
Yeah, yeah.
And I would say the same thing for Load and Reload.
Maybe it's because what we've had to put up with since then. I don't know.
Maybe. So 13 is Saint Anger.
Yeah, 13 has to be Saint Anger.
It has to be Saint Anger.
It's so different in so many ways. 12 is different in a lot of ways too, but not compared to 11. And 11 is a natural step after 10's linearity. And I think 12 is a natural step after 10's linearity. After the Black Album's Metallica-ness, those games are a natural progression to okay, let's be something different. It was too confining. It was too perfect. We got to fuck with it. We got to make it something else that's still good, but not perfect, because we can't just keep releasing 10s. We got to get some 9s and 8s and 4s.
See, now, you made the comparison that the Black Album is better than FF8 when you were saying FF8 was the Black Album. I would say my comparison is that FF13 is a better game than Saint Anger is an album.
Probably. Yeah.
I would say, okay, here's how I could compare that then. So they're both kind of really hated things, but then they have their big fans that fucking love them no matter what. They're like, Saint Anger's my favorite album. Those fucking weirdos out there that do that. Because it's a pretty trash album. The only straight up bad Metallica album. Like, that's the only one where I would be like, don't listen to that. Like, if some guy were like trying to find Metallica, I'd be like, just skip that one.
It's acquired for sure.
You got, there's some good things about it, mostly not. I would say the return to heaviness is like almost kind of the gameplay aspect of 13. Like, it was something that was really positive, like a positive move for a fan. Is the gameplay is really fast and fluid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then some people still don't like it.
I would say 13 almost. I would say the story of 13.
The story is the songwriting and clunkiness of Saint Anger.
And I would almost say the gameplay is almost Death Magnetic-y. No, I don't know, because Death Magnetic is like a return to roots.
Yeah.
Album that they had, which 14 Final
this.
Fantasy 14 is certainly that.
14 is Death Magnetic.
FF14 is the most Final Fantasy. I know a lot of people say FF9 is the callback one. No, you have no fucking idea. If you've never played 14, 9, yeah, it calls back. It has Kane's Lands. It has like a lot of the same feels that the early Final Fantasies have, but 14 takes the cake. As far as that's concerned, 14 is
a game made of other games.
It's made from every other game in the series in a lot of ways. Less 13, I guess, but they do have some of the like epic music and like so. It's honestly, it like sort of it's everything that is Final Fantasy. So, and we've seen that a lot of the people we have many listeners that didn't play 14 and refused to play 14, and now some of them are like that's all they do is they just play 14. I think Judge Gabranth, a good friend of the podcast, he didn't play 14 before, and now he's like one of the best in his job in 14. Like he's like number 2 or some shit. Last time I was talking to him, like he's sick, and it's because it's so Final Fantasy. It's like such a callback to what everything in the series was, and
yeah, they had to get Rick Rubin in there.
Yeah, they had to blast it
to come in and like break Metallica. Yeah. / Final Fantasy, and really return it to its roots. Yeah, I get it.
And make everything way too loud.
Yeah.
Way too loud. You can't go over 20 out of 40 in your car, or you just can't hear anything.
Yeah.
Which sucks, because it's supposed to be loud, but it's not supposed to be loud first.
It's crushed.
It's destroyed.
It's crushed.
It's the sound quality is the FF12 sound quality, I would say.
FF12's voice acting stuff is really compressed.
Yeah, it is. It's like it sounds like they're talking
like
through
a podcast
a tin
that
can.
We fucking mixed.
Yeah,
yeah,
it does. It sounds worse than a podcast at times. It sounds like a podcast that was recorded where our microphones were at the end of a fucking can of beans with a string on it. You know?
Sometimes
it's very, not great. But the lyrical quality, the writing, pretty good.
I don't think the writing in 14 is great.
No, not really.
I'd say that's one of the comparisons that doesn't work, is that Death Magnetic has really good songs. And 14's story, some people love it, but I never really got into it.
I don't really care. 14, I think 14's...
Everything else about 14 I really like.
Yeah, it's really fun.
So.
But honestly, I still think that they...
But as its device in the series as a return to form, I think it totally works in the comparison.
I think so, too. Jake got a good FF11 comparison there. He said FF11 wanted you to pay money. Lars wanted you to pay money from the Napster incident. So it's similar in that way, too, where it's like they just keep getting money from it and they don't want anything to be free anymore. You got to buy the game and pay the sub. Can't be downloading that shit for free. Which I get. I do. Because it's stealing. No matter what you say. But, they wanted you to keep paying.
And then we'll get the 3 people that'll be like, well, this creator said to steal it.
Yeah, it's like, you can steal his stuff.
That's because he wants to be on your good side, and the only way he's making money is through concert tickets.
Yeah.
So he kind of needs you to like him. Sorry, you've been duped.
Yeah. And that's great for him, but not everybody is this one particular niche artist that doesn't care. Yeah. Not everyone's HBO with Thrones, where they've made enough money that they don't care anymore.
Well, the thing is, Metallica was definitely right about the future of the industry, and they were trying to create legal help, basically, to help pay artists for digital stuff. And iTunes came in, was kind of the savior of that, but then things like Spotify, they aren't paying artists nearly as much money as they were making before when people were buying songs, just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, Metallica was, and Trent Reznor and, Dr. Dre, they were all right.
Yeah.
But Metallica were the ones that got shit on more than the other guys. But anyway,
although I will say, they make plenty of money at this fucking concert, so I don't want to hear it.
They do, but other bands don't.
No, I know.
So that's the problem with the digital music and stealing digital music, is that you have removed, as a society, you have totally removed the middle class of music.
You have, yeah. Lamb of God, one of the biggest metal bands right now, as far as, not Metallica, not Megadeth, not, God tier. That guy has a normal job.
Yep.
When he's not touring, the lead singer, he works.
Yep. And
he says he has to. He doesn't make enough fucking money. They make a good amount of money touring, but they're, 5 members of the band?
You gotta split it up.
So he has to... and that's a big act.
You're either Taylor Swift, or you hold a day job and are in tiny touring band.
Exactly, yeah. You can't...
And it's sad. That's the sad thing. You can't just be a musician that's a middle class musician.
Yeah,
unless you're the only one that hasn't been touched is the country music industry. It's fucking weird. I don't know why it hasn't been touched, but people still buy country albums. So Nashville still works. You have working musicians and people who go and do studio shit. But to me, that's a sad thing that the internet has created. And Metallica tried to stop it. They tried. Whatever. None of us get to have our... in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, there were all these little bands that everybody liked, and those people would be successful. They would have a career at that point.
Yeah, but now they don't.
Now they don't.
No, they're nobody. They're the guy from Creed who's insane and
that guy
doing, crazy stuff.
He sold enough albums back then that he's still...
You think he got in early enough? Yeah. I guess that's true. Their first album was insane.
Selling 10 million albums that's a lot of money.
That's fair.
Even to split between 5 people, that's a lot of money, and other agents and shit like that.
Yeah.
But it's sad, yeah. When we go see musical acts now, it's we're gonna go see Avenged Sevenfold, but it's gonna be with 6 other bands.
Yeah.
Opening for them. Now all that money is getting split, and they're really not making that much money.
Yeah.
So you remove the middle class of the music industry by
By pirating?
First by stealing, and then second by these streaming services that aren't paying artists enough.
And there are some artists that refuse to be on them.
Yeah, because of that, frankly.
Yeah. Metallica is on Spotify, but AC/DC for a long time they weren't. They weren't on there, and Tool's not on there either. Tool is still not on Spotify. They refuse to. They just won't do it. They'll be on YouTube, but
they just don't make the money that way.
I guess Spotify is too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Single artists are a little bit better off, but even they have to have like a team that has to come with them as they tour and shit like that. So it's just sad. It's just sad. Yeah, I remember I wanted to be a musician for a long time. I'm glad I never went and did that because I'd be very poor. Not that I'm not now.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you do the thing you're going to do, you're probably going to be way poor anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's kind of this...
But less poor than I would be as a musician.
That's true. And it's not... It's the same in some respects from the directing aspect, but not from, like, the industry aspect, because you can make pretty good money just being a team member.
No, and TV is exploding, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, so you'll probably be fine.
And you're just still going to get that minimum, the director's minimum, I think it's like $15,000 a week.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But
slightly more than I get at the post office, I would say.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, it's few and far between. You're not like constantly employed.
Yeah.
So anyway... You destroy the music industry by stealing. Way to go, guys. Please don't do it to the movie industry. Of course, the movie industry always looks at the music industry and sees what's going to happen and then sets up a bunch of legal shit so that it doesn't happen. Like Disney goes after pirators.
Yeah.
And shit like that. So it's a little better in that respect. But fucking stop stealing, people. Look, it's a service rendered and you gotta pay for the services rendered.
Yeah.
I was entertained. Here's money.
That's how it works. Yeah, you're not owed.
They're not owed
someone's work because it wasn't available to you, or it's not on the current gen, or any of that. And then you get into kind of like, it gets tougher when it's like, well, what if I buy a used copy of Saint Anger? Like, the artist isn't getting supported then either. And in that case, I can see people being like, well, that's the same as pirating it in a lot of ways, because either way, Metallica doesn't make money. But one way they did make money one time. And the pirating way, they didn't necessarily make money once.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And a link to pirating
an album.
But who
buys used CDs now?
I have before.
Oh, really?
Sometimes. I don't know. It's tough, though, because...
Crapshoot.
One, FYE is trash. Two, I can buy most CDs for like $8 on Amazon. So, like, if it's $8 new, I'm going to buy it new. You know, it's just... So, yeah, I guess nobody buys used. Nobody buys CDs, first off. Nobody buys used CDs anymore, secondly.
I bought a CD last week.
The last one
I bought a Megadeth remaster.
The last one I bought was the new Godsmack album, which I regret greatly. It was terrible.
See, they got your sale, and we're happy about it.
Yeah, I know. I know, and there are people that are happy for them, and they're all wrong. They're just
wrong.
I don't know what the fuck band they were listening to that they thought was that. But
so then FF15 would be Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Oddly, both released in 2016.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that was a good time, actually.
Yeah.
Like right around then, I was like,
fall of 2016.
I was like, fucking yes, I've got the best.
It's a Megadeth album a few months earlier than that.
Yeah. I think, or was that?
It was like March.
Yeah, you're right. It was. So that was a good year. It was a good year for things that I like.
For metal, there was a Slayer album that year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh no, the year before, I think November.
Oh, was it the year before?
Yeah.
Oh, well then.
All of the things that I liked were there.
Yeah. Now we got to wait 2 more years for something else. Happens.
And then I had to wait another year for something that I ended up hating. So the Godsmack. It was like a good time for Caleb, and then at the end, it was a really bad time for Caleb. It's really, really subpar, like high school pop music, rock time for Caleb.
I think in general, the feeling for 15 is that it's pretty darn good. I think in general that the feeling for Hardwired to Self-Destruct is that it's pretty darn good. I think that Hardwired to Self-Destruct is better than Death Magnetic, but you do not.
I don't know.
Would you keep that same comparison for
15 versus
14? So I think you rank 15 higher than 14.
No, I think 15's better than 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that one doesn't work for you.
No, it's hard because I do like Hardwired a lot, but there are some really great Metallica songs on both. But I think the caliber of song might be better on Death Magnetic. There isn't an Unforgiven 3 anywhere on Death Magnetic.
There's almost no ballads. Halo on Fire is like a half ballad. It's not quite a ballad.
And that's what makes it hard. And if I were to... honestly, I think Hardwired is closer to their first album than any other album they've released. There's not a whole lot going on guitar-wise, which their first album there kind of is, but it's not what we're used to.
Right.
There's still some really good songs on there, but then there's some weird stuff that they have never done before. And I would say that's kind of similar to Kill 'Em All, where there's some like odd like song styles and like setups that they have never repeated, and they probably never
Just
will.
Confusion.
Yeah, where they go
Okay.
prog for a little while.
Yeah.
It's like, and
They went prog and Justice for All, but
yeah, I guess with the guitar solos and stuff,
yeah.
it's prog.
Well, and the timing.
Yeah,
And Justice for All, the song has a bunch of different time signature changes.
that's true, but it's different. It's better than all prog rock.
I'm not disagreeing with you. And
I like
Justice-
prog a little, and I like that a lot. So
prog metal.
that's tough.
I would. Yeah, I think they both did extremely well. They both did better than the previous albums that have been out, right? So, Hardwired did better than Death Magnetic. Hardwired did so good that they're doing a stadium tour instead of an arena tour. So that's like the difference. When they did Death Magnetic, it was an arena tour, and they're doing an arena tour now.
I would say that it's similar
as opposed to
to
a stadium tour.
I would say it's similar to FF6 and 7 in that way, where 6 was so good that 7 was going to be a big hit no matter what. And 7 was so good that 8 was going to be a big hit no matter what. I would say the same thing works for Megadeth with Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction. Rust in Peace is, to me, undoubtedly the better album.
You think so?
Yes. But Countdown is really good, and it came after the really fucking awesome Megadeth album, so of course it's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. And then the next one after that, not as big, because Countdown wasn't quite as good, even though everybody bought it because of the album that came before it. I would say other bands follow a similar pattern to where like you set up like an idea of how good you can be, and over time more and more people are going to collect it. You're going to have the day one purchasers like us who are going to buy it no matter what. I bought the Godsmack album no matter what. I didn't listen to anything but the one really shitty single, and that's it. And I'm going to buy it no matter what. And I'll buy their next one no matter what. But their next one is going to be based off of what happened the time before.
I listened to a 3 Days Grace song after you said that comment. You were right. They are trying to sound like 3 Days Grace.
And that was like, oh, 09. Like, it's too late, man. You fucking missed the boat.
3 Days Grace from 2010.
I'm glad you missed the boat, but you missed the boat. Like, you're on your own. You, like, jumped ship from the awesome, like, well-sailing boat. Now you're on this shitty little rescue canoe thing.
It's their reload or load.
It's pretty bad.
Of course, I wouldn't call 10,000 horsepower the Black Album, but
no, that's insulting. But it kind of has that feel though. Like I think the first Godsmack album is really good, and it was kind of a big underground hit. And then their next one, and then their next 3 or 4 were number ones.
Yeah,
because of how good the first one was, and then they kept that up. Final Fantasy and Metallica don't always keep that up, and I think that's where it kind of falls. And I kind of feel like Death Magnetic is really good, but a lot of people didn't like it as much in the beginning because it's so different than what they put out in the last,
it's a
15
return to
years.
form, and there's a shitload of people who love it.
And the return to form thing is kind of a difficult thing to master as well, because is it really a return to form? I mean, I think it is.
It's a return to a lot of things.
But it's not as good as the other forms. So they're going to be like, well, yeah, they sound like they used to, but it's just not as good. So there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to be on board for it. And I think another thing that 15 and Hardwired to Self-Destruct compare with is how fucking long it took between the last thing
That's true.
and this thing to come out.
Like 10-year projects.
And so it's massive. And like everyone's like, oh man, it's going to happen. Like there's going to be another Metallica album. If 15 is finally going to fucking come out.
Yeah.
So just everybody goes for it. The people who loved it in the beginning, the people who loved it in the middle, the people who loved the return to form, everybody grabs it. And I think that's why Hardwired is more successful, because they built it.
Okay.
And it took a long ass time since the last one that came out for this one to come out. I don't know if it necessarily compares with the...
See, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, I think sounds... Because Death Magnetic was definitely them trying to sound like something in between Justice for All and the Black Album.
Yeah, I would say that's it.
So, like, they were trying to sound like FF8. But I would say that Hardwired to Self-Destruct, it definitely has its foot in Death Magnetic. Like, there's a lot of stuff that sounds like Death Magnetic stuff. At the same time, they kind of swayed back a little bit into that load and reload era with the melody type stuff and the bluesy and the more mid-tempo songs.
And I'd say they almost went further with Kill 'Em All as far as like the way the songs feel, like the brutality of some of them. Like it's very... I honestly, my comparison for that, I think if I were to look at the albums, I think I would assume that this one came out after Kill 'Em All.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's hard because they're way better at
the
music.
Recording,
and the
sound
recording
quality
sounds
is a little
like
different. But
about 1 billion times better instead of about 1,000,000 times better
Yeah.
with the next one. But I don't know. It is kind of tough, though, because you're
I
right.
would almost put it after Black Album and then into Load. Because there's also a weird...
I think that
disconnect
works,
there.
too, yeah. Anywhere where there's a disconnect, I guess, the
Yeah.
weird disconnect albums would fit.
Where it's just suddenly different. Like,
Yeah.
there needs to be something in between Reload and Saint Anger. There's just fucking nothing there. It's just like the differences between those two albums is ridiculous.
I think I said this one, the new one, could be before Saint Anger as well. But it
Yeah.
doesn't work after Reload. Like, it works even less than Saint Anger after Reload.
After
so.
Saint Anger would be weird, too. If it was, like, directly after Saint Anger, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Like, what do you want? What are you trying to do here?
So, so this was kind of fun. I do have a thing. I got a theory that I've brought up in the Godzilla podcast. I might have brought up here with long-term creative things. And I solidified it with James Bond, and I'm looking at Star Wars, and I'm seeing it too.
Yeah.
So there's a pattern. Okay, there's a wide, generalized, this is not exact, this is a generalized pattern between these long-running things. I'll call the Metallica albums a series right now, just for the sake of simplicity.
All right.
So they start in a place of purity that is built upon things that came before them.
Yes, of course. Nothing is original. Everything has some thing pulled from somewhere else.
And then with the second thing, they find their voice. I can do this with Final Fantasy, the first run of games. They're steeped in Dragon Quest, and then they find their voice with Final Fantasy IV onward.
Yeah.
I could do it with James Bond. Dr. No is steeped in a 60s movie, and it's an action movie, but it's kind of slower paced, whatever. Freaking From Russia with Love comes out and just like it really hits that ball, and then it becomes James Bond. From Russia with Love is now the thing that James Bond is on. Star Wars, I think that first Star Wars, it's steeped in Disney movies. It's of
Are
course
you talking the new ones?
it's steeped in no, I'm talking about the old ones. So 1975.
You said steeped in Disney movies. So I was
No.
like-
I mean, George Lucas, when he made the first Star Wars, was saying he wanted to make a Disney movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was like his goal, basically. And then the hero's journey, and it's based upon those old serials, right? It's steeped in something else, and it was a big hit, spawned a sequel, and then that sequel really took it away. I would say, like, just like From Russia with Love is Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
It's a more complex movie, and it has a different kind of tone to it, just a little bit. And then the series kind of builds on that one more than it even builds on the first one.
Yeah.
Except with Star Wars, of course, they return to it. And just like the second albums with Metallica. But then there's this kind of... And, oh, by the way, the Godzilla movies are... That one doesn't really work for Godzilla, but I would call, like, the first Godzilla movie is almost... no, actually, I would call it that. So the first Godzilla movie is a horror movie and a big giant monster movie that they're stealing from from King Kong and shit like that. It's excellent. And the second one's not as good, but it had the monster versus monster and the suit thing, and then the series took off with that, right? So even the second Godzilla movie does that. And of course, I have a Godzilla podcast, so I'm seeing a whole bunch of like comparisons with that. But there's always like the first couple things are steeped in one category, and that's kind of the start of the series category, where it's still trying to find its voice. Then the second round of things is when it gets really commercial and usually more lighthearted. I don't think it works for Final Fantasy in that respect, but they did get their own version of commerciality from that. So
from
FF4
like 7
through 7, I would say there definitely is a little bit more. We're casting a bigger net out there for other people to enjoy our stuff. Same with Metallica, man. They at some point they stopped with their kind of first serious nature type stuff, and they cast a bigger net, and they got more people in there. James Bond series, you got the Sean Connery era, followed by the Roger Moore era, and almost there's another kind of it's just a different kind of audience, a different tone almost entirely. And that's after they've already found their voice as a James Bond movie or as a Final Fantasy thing. And it's after they've found their voice that they're going in this new direction. Godzilla did a similar thing where they kind of tried to stay serious, kind of back and forth. I would say Sean Connery area. They try to stay serious, but then they get goofy, right? Sometimes. Then they really get goofy with Roger Moore, and Godzilla really gets goofy later on in the show era. It just gets really goofy. I would say that goofy period in Star Wars, that
the Lucas period,
I would call it. I would probably call it the prequels, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure about that comparison, if that really works. But then they kind of waver back and forth between what they were before and then their second kind of run as a commercial thing. They wave back and forth with that. And I can see it in all these series. So I've been saying that I think we're kind of in the we're in a late Roger Moore era for Star Wars right now. And eventually Dalton will come in and bring the series in.
So are you saying
rein it in, and like Metallica kind of reins it in and kind of brings it back to their roots. But then, Hardwired to Self-Destruct comes, they get a little bit of that Roger Moore in there, kind of that load and reload thing. So it's funny seeing these long series. They always seem to have a similar, though not exact, a similar pattern of more serious in tone to less serious in tone.
So are you telling me
they
that
just go back and forth for up until they end, which they never.
So
do.
Roger Moore rescued it, kind of like J.J. Abrams is supposed to rescue Episode 9. Is that what you're telling me?
Roger Moore did rescue it because of George Lazenby. So that was part of my comparison when I talked about it on the Godzilla podcast. I think I called George Lazenby the prequels. There's some people that think it's the best. Don't think so.
It's just not, but
it's just not. He's just not. Actually, the movie's pretty good, so that doesn't really work. But George Lazenby, the Bond, is not very good. And then now we're in Roger Moore territory. So we're super commercial. The first couple were really good. I would say just the first one for Star Wars. And we're gonna get goofy. We're gonna get goofy for some time with the goofy Roger Moore era. But then we're going to kind of bring it back to our roots. And I think we're in Final Fantasy. I think we're trying to pull it back to the roots.
Yeah, and I mean, they've talked about
I think 13 that's the goofball one.
Yeah.
That's the crazy one, and they're trying to rein it in right now. And that's going to be the pattern until the end of time. I see these fucking long series that I'm into that have been going on for years and years, and there is a weird pattern of they always start like a tuning fork that they really waver to big lines of craziness, and then they got to get retuned, and they'll pull a Dalton where the series will just suddenly get really dark. Or with Godzilla movies like Godzilla 1984, Godzilla vs. Biollante, they'll get really dark, which I can't wait till the Star Wars movie that does that comes out, by the way.
Yeah.
They'll get really dark, and then they'll kind of go back into the middle again, get goofy again, get pulled back down to being, more serious in tone.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of see it with politics and all sorts of things over
You
time.
do.
You see corrections and overcorrections and shit, we went too far, shit, we didn't go far enough. Like, it's like a huge waving thing. And with long-running series like America or like Metallica,
the America series,
yeah, the America series, 200 plus years strong.
Yeah.
You see it, yeah, and that is a good point, and it's hard because there aren't a whole lot of things that you can. There aren't a whole lot of mediums that really have that long of a shelf life, so it is kind of tough to find some that do, and there are also some that do that just don't have as many like main series games, like Resident Evil. There are a bunch of Resident Evil games, and it has a kind of a similar situation, but they haven't really returned to what they were in the beginning yet. But there are also only 6-7 main games, and I guess 7. No, you know what? Maybe they do return, because 7 is
a return to form.
Is kind of a return to form. Yeah, it's a mix. It's a return to form, but it's not acknowledging the recent ones.
All these series will get loosey-goosey, and then at some point they'll realize they went too far. They'll pull a Die Another Day or something like that, and then they got to go, okay, we got to make Casino Royale.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Here's what I hope. So nothing will ever be as good as From Russia with Love. I'm saying that in a cheeky sort of way. I actually think maybe Casino Royale is better, but eventually there will be a Casino Royale. Kind of like with the Godzilla series. Shin Godzilla, which if you haven't seen it, is like a Godzilla return to form to being a serious movie. None of them really between the first Godzilla movie and
2014 are serious
and
at all.
The 2016 one are really serious.
Oh,
at
is
all.
it 16?
I'm not counting the American one in this respect. And so that Shin Godzilla being like the super dark, super political one and really making him a monster again. Like, that's super important to correct the series from the goofiness that it had become beforehand. And, Die Another Day happens with Pierce Brosnan. We got to get the blonde Bond in there and make it just super serious or in comparison, at least, and dark. And it'll be great, too.
Yeah.
So someday, guys, Star Wars will be fixed. So there will be a course correction in Star Wars. Unfortunately, we're in the middle. I said we were in the late Roger Moore era. I was wrong. I think we're just straight up in the middle of the Roger Moore era. And it's going to get real goofy. And this could have been the goofy one. I don't know. Maybe episode 9 will be the course correction because they brought it back in, J.J. Abrams. But that's what'll happen with these long series, man. You're in it. So someday Star Wars will become James Bond, where it's like, wonder if this one's going to be good or not. And sometimes it'll be fucking Skyfall. And then sometimes it'll be fucking Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
It'll do something like that. So, and with Godzilla, sometimes it'll be Godzilla versus Hedorah, like a really kind of dark toned one, and then sometimes it'll be Godzilla versus Megalon, which is a really, really goofy, terrible Godzilla movie.
I gotta be honest. I've watched like 5 of those. There are 3. There is one that's really good. It's just the first one, and there are 2 that are okay, which is Shin Godzilla and the American one.
Yeah. Shin Godzilla.
It's still pretty goddamn goofy sometimes. I was laughing at him like squirming up.
The weird monster
I was like,
thing.
what the fuck?
Okay.
And then he morphs. And
I think that movie is almost perfect, except for the girl who's supposed to be American is definitely
who's going to become president.
But there's shit like that. There's shit like that. Well, you never know, Schweiss.
I guess that's true.
Sometimes you can be a TV host to be the president.
You can,
not too much
a B-list actor, a TV
that's
person. Right. Fuck.
Yeah. Sometimes you can do an okay job. Sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that girl. I think except for that Shin Godzilla is great.
I think the tough part though with Star Wars is that there aren't as many of them coming out, so like the course corrections might not be as gradual over time. So like we might correct immediately after the goofy.
I think Final Fantasy is going through a thing. So they obviously had their run of hits. Then they kind of got a little. They got a little goofy. Had a big goofy hit too. That, by the way, that happens in the Roger Moore era as well. They get a big goofy hit, and then it's kind of back and forth for the rest of the time, just kind of going back and being like, too far, bring it back. Too far, bring it back. They just do that. It's an interesting pattern that I've noticed with all the fucking long series.
Honestly, Game of Thrones does the same thing. The
Think
show,
so?
yeah, it does.
Well, Game of Thrones, I think, only had one season that wasn't as good as the others. Unless Seven's that way. I haven't seen the 7th season.
You got to watch it.
Okay.
I don't know why you haven't watched it. You're pissing me off. I have
Sorry.
HBO now. You can watch it.
Sorry.
But yeah, season 5 is like the one that everybody hates, and then it like goes back. Season 6 is amazing.
I didn't even hate season 5. I just thought it was like just lesser in comparison.
Yeah, there are some really great stuff.
There's
really
fucking
awesome
great
shit.
stuff in that. But then they had the Sand Snakes. Honestly, if the Sand Snakes weren't there, I probably wouldn't give a shit.
That's true.
I would
yeah.
probably like the show.
It'd probably
just
be
as
like
much.
it'd probably be like season 2 where it's like pretty good. No
Yeah.
problems, you know.
Yeah, no problems.
Yeah, they're all of them are awful, and the mom is awful too. Like I just hate seeing them. I'm so glad they don't happen as much later.
Oh,
You gotta watch 7. Well, I mean, you don't see him really at all in 6.
so I don't know if I see that course. They did a course correction, but it wasn't as big or drastic as fucking these big series that I'm talking about.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, we just gotta realize as Star Wars fans and as Final Fantasy fans, they'll bring it back if it keeps going. They'll realize what they've done. They'll bring it back. They'll have some missteps. They'll bring it back. That's what we always do.
But just know,
I think FF15 is a. Well, 14 was definitely the course correction, and then FF15 is like the next one. So
just know that they will probably never reach what they once were.
or they could come out with Casino Royale and be like probably the best Bond movie, despite the fact that it's way fucking later in the series. That could happen. I would say Casino Royale and Shin Godzilla hold that kind of thing, where they're just as good as their previous giant peak
All right.
earlier on.
I have not watched the Bond movies.
So we
enough,
could have a Star Wars could eventually get to an Empire Strikes Back.
A lot of people think it's right
level.
now, but
I think they're fucking crazy.
yeah.
That movie it's messy. That Last Jedi is real messy.
Yeah, and the other one's not. There are similarities between the two. There are plenty of them, but
Well, even Episode 7 is a course correction from the prequels.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
And I think it was a pretty good course correction.
yeah.
But it has to get goofy. It has to go up and get stupid.
And it did immediately.
Yeah,
Like the
it
first
went
first
real-
scene in the movie.
It went pretty fast. I mean, if we're counting the movies in between, like Rogue One, then I would say there was more of a gradual slide. But if
Well, we're not
you're
counting
just
spin-offs.
counting the episodes, then it went wonky real fast.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But some people love it. Just like I still love watching the Roger Moore era Bond films. They're super goofy, over the top. It's everything that Austin Powers made fun of was more Roger Moore era Bond than anything. But it's also kind of the reason you love it. It's because it's really in that kind of dumb category.
All right.
I don't know. It's a theory I've had for a long time. This is a good way to express it. Is our comparison with Metallica and Final Fantasy. I would say that there is another band, Schweiss, that has 15 albums, like we have 15 main series games.
Yeah, I will say though, Megadeth.
And I wonder if Megadeth's discography also lines up with the FFs. I don't think it does.
No, because
but
Rust in Peace is
album 4, I think.
no. Oh no, no. I was thinking. Sorry, Peace Cells is way closer to what Megadeth is than Final Fantasy 2 is to what Final Fantasy is. They hit it. They hit the stride a lot faster.
They did.
Like years before.
And I don't know.
But they do have rough patches, though.
They
Yeah,
do have
you're
some
right.
rough patches.
They have some really shitty things that came out at specific times. I think that would be another fun comparison episode where we just because it's
1-to-1 ratio Final Fantasy.
I don't think that'll work at all, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't think that pattern works at all. But I think Megadeth also has that similar run of like, because for Megadeth, it's like, we got to get back to fast and heavy. And so they'll go more and more radio friendly, and then they got to pull it back down. More and more radio friendly, and then they got to pull it back down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that is actually really accurate. Yeah.
it's the pattern, man. I don't know if that pattern happens in podcasts, but
I don't know. Yeah.
Definitely know with these things it happens. All right, guys. This has been a really long episode, so we should probably just cut it off now.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Hopefully you don't hate Metallica, so you enjoyed this episode.
And hey, you know what? If you've never gotten into Metallica, it's okay. It's all right. We can hold your hand here. I personally think the first album you should get, or you should listen to all the way through a few times. Give it more than one try. Every time you've gotten into an artist, don't tell me it only took one try to get into him. That's bullshit. I think it's the Black Album. I think you got to go Black Album first.
That's FF10, yeah. You have to go.
You got to go Black Album, man.
Black Album's actually a better entry point than 10, but yeah. You got to go there.
There's no laughing scene in Black Album.
There's not.
And you'll probably recognize like 5 of the songs from the Black Album because those have just been radio singles that have gone on forever. Even if you don't listen to rock radio, you've definitely overheard those songs before. So I would say Black Album first, which is, we're calling it the Black Album. It's the self-titled album. It's just called Metallica.
Yeah.
And then kind of work into the classics, I would say. Then kind of go Justice for All, and then Master of Puppets. And then fuck around. Then you can go from there on. You can kind of
it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
take on. But those 3 albums, Metallica, and Justice for All, and Master of Puppets.
And then you'll realize that I was right all along. That it's never going to be as good as it once was. Just can't. I don't know why. It just can't.
I would even do like Hardwired to Self-Destruct like after those 3.
Probably, yeah. And then maybe Kill 'Em All.
Yeah.
And then fuck around.
Then you're going to be one of those people that hates Load and Reload.
Probably,
those are good entry points too, by the way.
We forced you into the real Metallica. But
I resent that. I think Reload and Load, I think they're better than Kill 'Em All. I think both of those albums are. I fucking love Load. I think Load maybe has like 3 tracks on there that I don't really care for. The rest of the album I fucking love. Like Outlaw Torn is amazing, I think. It's a different Metallica. It's like slow jam, blues-ish, grunge-ish Metallica. But the songs are so fucking good. And the first few songs off of Reload and then the ending, Fixer, I think those are just amazing songs too.
yeah,
Come on.
I don't know. Fuel is too much.
In my opinion, now
Fuel is their version of Thunderstruck. Which
Fuel
is, you don't
has
ever
been-
have to hear it again. and
Fuel
you're
has
fine.
been played way too much on the radio for me to like.
And it's not like
really
when
look
Death
forward to
Magnetic
it.
came out and Day That Never Comes was every other song, which really got on my nerves, and I resented Metallica for a while.
Really?
Because I was like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to hear this song anymore. Now I listen to that song and I'm like, that is a really, really good song. Like, I don't know why I was so negative towards it when it came out, other than the fact that every 2 seconds it'd be doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo on the radio.
So in Utah, there's no black people, right? There's a black kid in my high school. He was like, he'd heard that I like Metallica. He's like, love that Fuel song.
You're like,
Just like, it's good.
it's not a bad song, I guess, but it's
It
like,
is a lot of fun. I like if you just shut off the fact that you've heard it a million times, like blast it, just have fun with it. It's a great song.
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But come on, Memory Remains and Unforgiven 2. There is nothing on Kill 'Em All that can match those songs. There's nothing. Nothing. Sorry, guys. Kill 'Em All is not as good as Reload. Just the peaks are higher in Reload than in Kill 'Em All.
I don't know about that. I think Four Horsemen is better than.
See, now, Four Horsemen is one of the ones I don't really like. That's an okay one for me.
I think
Kill
that's the
'Em All.
best song on that album, easily. Yeah,
I think for me, it's
the creeping death of that CD. I think because it's the big, like, fast chug. You know,
I think for me, it's Jump in the Fire or Seek and Destroy.
Seek and Destroy is pretty fucking awesome too. That's probably number 2. But I don't know, man. There's something about Four Horsemen that I just love.
Okay, fine.
And Reload, I don't think
Fixer, man.
it's probably better, but I don't know if I like it more.
What? All right, whatever.
It's hard because they're both bottom barrel.
Fixer is not a
No, I mean bottom
song.
barrel albums, but
I think Fixer's like one of the top 15 songs by Metallica.
I don't know. Maybe
It gets better every fucking time I listen to that song. It's just amazing. His vocals on it are just great. Anyway.
it is good.
I'm a huge Metallica fan. I'm a Metallica fan who loves all eras of Metallica.
I do too.
Except for
I just love more.
I listen to maybe 2 songs off of Saint Anger every once in a while. It's not really a.
I've listened to Some Kind of Monster a lot of times.
Some Kind of Monster is a lot of fun.
Many
That's
times.
one That's one that should be on the background of like an Orange County Choppers commercial.
Yeah, probably.
That kind of industrial heavy metal sound. Anyway, we should get out of here. Thanks, guys, for joining us on Ultima. Hopefully, if Twice's schedule works out, hopefully we have Crystal Chronicles beaten by next time.
Okay, I think I'll have next weekend off. I think because it's usually a 2-week rotation of fuck you, you're split, and then okay, you
We
get
will find
weekends.
out.
We will. Yeah.
I'm not happy about this.
No, it's too bad. We need to get it done, and we will. But hopefully,
We
it'll
tried.
be next week.
We
Yeah.
tried.
But anyway, guys, as always, thanks for listening and enjoy the Metallica grind.